Hey guys, welcome to the Massive Iron Channel. I'm Steve Shaw. In this video, we're going to talk about bulking. We're going to talk about bulking, why it fails, just not from a diet standpoint, but from also a training standpoint. Before I get into that topic, if you have any questions or comments, drop them down below. The best topic ideas I turn into videos just like this. All right. So it's a pleasure to be joined by Faz. And we're trying to do a video once a week, Faz, and you tossed out a good topic this week. Before we get into it, where can everybody find you on social media?
Right, folks, so I'm at Fazlifts, as you can see on the screen in front of you. That's on Instagram, Facebook, I'm on YouTube, and I also have a podcast where I discuss various things, and that's at Fazlifts on all major podcast platforms. So, yeah, go check it out. Drop me a 5-star review on iTunes. That'd be great. Thank you.
All right, thanks. So, Faz, we're talking about bulking, and there's we can look at it from the standpoint of training, and we can look at it from the standpoint of nutrition. And I'm going to let you take the dance floor first and talk a little bit about how bulking fails from a nutrition standpoint.
So I did a video recently where I highlighted a current client of mine who, before coming to me, put on some 70 pounds in the quest for size and strength, when the majority of that was just fat weight. It was really, really crap weight. And luckily, what we managed to do with me was we dropped the fat down. We got him on a sensible regime. But his mistake was really just going all out for size and ignoring the fact that the human body can really only put on muscle so fast. And if we look past the beginner stage, where perhaps the first year of training, maybe you're going to put on about 20 pounds of muscle if you're lucky, if you do things right. After that, let's say you're in the early intermediate phase, we're probably looking for about 5 pounds of muscle over the course of the year, and then progressively less than that. Now, you've got to bear that in mind when you're looking at planning your year. So let's say you've got a bulk for, 5 months before you decide you maybe try and clean things up a little bit before summer or whatever. Within those 5 months, you've got to really moderate how much weight you're going to put on, bearing in mind that overall, during the course of the year, you're probably limited to not pounds and pounds of muscle. So I would say, as a general rule of thumb, what I do with my clients is I like to limit them to around about 1 kilo per month. That works out pretty well. So if we're, say, just to throw out some numbers for you guys, and that's about 2 pounds. So just to throw out some numbers for you guys, let's say we ended a cut phase at about 80 kilos. So like roughly 180 pounds. And we decided that we were going to have a bulk now for about, say, 5 months. Now, there'll be an initial burst of weight because you'll fill out with glycogen, food in your gut, all that kind of stuff. So you might just pop up to 83 kilos within the first week. And then I'd like to see a slow progression of maybe 5 kilos over the course of 5 months. So you're going from 80 to 88. And you can be fairly certain that a large portion of that is going to be muscle without gaining too much fat weight. So I like to make sure that we're not going overboard, because we've got to bear in mind a human body, whether natural or not, is really only going to be able to put on muscle at a certain fairly slow rate. So just bear that in mind.
Yeah, so physiologically, and I just want to set the table here, because Faz and I do not conspire before these videos to say, hey, we agree on this, let's go push this agenda. We actually haven't talked in over 10 years. So the conclusions we come to are mutually exclusive, I guess you could say. What I tell my clients is pretty much the same thing. I start them at 1.5 pounds a month. If they are training, and we're gonna get into this shortly, Faz, if they are training up to the level where I see where I would like to see them, then we go up to 2 pounds a month. And that is for somebody that has not yet to build a substantial amount of muscle mass. So we're kind of right there, on that same track. I want to see somebody establish a track record of training appropriately before they move up to the 2. And with that in mind, it takes a lot of monitoring and a lot of precision to make sure somebody is at that level. Dietary consistency is very, very important. I preach it a lot on this channel. And you have a very precise goal, which is to maximize your muscle. And to get there, you really have to have a lot of quality consistency in your nutrition, so you're not going up and down and up and down. And it's it's harder to monitor weight gain over time when your graph looks like a roller coaster. So what Faz said about, first year muscle gain, he threw out about 20 pounds. Usually I toss out about 16 pounds. We're not trying to create rules. We're trying to create general general goals for folks. I am surprised when somebody actually gains 10 pounds of muscle their first year, because it's not, because so few people have all the right components in place, and the components aren't really rocket surgery. Would you agree, Faz?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had a very good first year, mainly because I read a book, and it was a great book. It was Robert's Beyond Brawn, and it gave me the great tools to start off on the right foot. And that made me start off with compound basics, a hell of a lot of food, and I put on a lot of total weight. So I had a great start, but most people don't have a great start. Most people go to the gym, they train chest, they train arms because they want to be like Arnold or whoever else in the media at the moment. And that's the start they have. So, but I think if you do things right, you can target like about 20 pounds or so. But the majority of people, they're really only putting on 10, if that.
I gained 30 pounds my first 2 years, 30 pounds on the scale my first 2 years of lifting. I had a mentor. I went to school in New Mexico, and I had a mentor, was an English professor who also happened to be a bodybuilder. And he had me doing, 2 sets of heavier work, 2 sets of moderate work, and 2 sets of lighter work per body part. And he was well ahead of his time. But in any case, I had pretty good guidance. And, I gained about 20 pounds of muscle and maybe 10 pounds of fat because it was an open cafeteria and I could eat as much as I wanted.
Yeah.
But 30 pounds in 2 years compared to some of these super bulks that we're seeing.
Yes.
And I want to touch on that real briefly. What Faz says, if you are eating so aggressively that you're gaining 20, 30, 40 pounds in 6 months period of time, there's no way you're going to speed up your muscle building, no matter how much you eat.
Yeah. There's going to be a hard cap. So all that's going to happen is you're going to have to diet that weight off. I mean, it's fun at the time. When you're young, you don't really feel the effects of all the extra food, the bloating. Like if I was to do that now, I'd feel terrible, right? I'd wake up the next morning, feel all blood pressure and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, at the time when you're young, it feels great. You wake up bigger every day. But if a lot of that's fat weight, then you're going to be in for a bad time when you look at dieting that off.
Yeah. So one of the things I see is people will get on bulks and they're like, oh, I get to eat again. And then they're kind of keep creeping over their calories. And then like 2 months into it, they're like, man, I gained 15 pounds already. I got to go back on a cut. So they're like flip-flop, bulk cut, never get anything done. It's maddening.
Yeah, I think that's another point which you and I have not really discussed, but I'm going to sort of throw my viewpoint out there and let me know what you think. I'm not a massive fan of bulking anymore for the large majority of my clients. There are some specific people where it's necessary, where they've never really gained that initial 20 pounds. But for the large majority of my clients, I get them lean. My guys walk around with six packs year round, and I get them in good shape and get them healthy. And then we have a slow progression where we're just focused on strength gain in moderate rep ranges, all the stuff that I always preach, where we have a slow increase of level of muscle mass, but we don't really bulk per se. So yeah, it's just eating a moderate amount of food. What are your thoughts on that, Steve?
Well, I have an interesting base. I have, because of my age, I have a lot of men that come to me and they like to be heavier. They're in their 40s and 50s. They feel more protective and for those guys, I try to get them under 240 pounds for longevity reasons. But when somebody comes to me and wants to build muscle, my first priority is to get them as lean as they want to get. So we can start building a platform, because if somebody starts building muscle and adding weight and they're not at a lean stage, then it's simply a matter of time before they look in the mirror and they're like, I'm too fat. I need to lose the weight. So I definitely try to get them to cut the fat and focus on good training.
Yeah. And while it's not really our responsibility, like 10 or 20 years down the line, if they're bulking really hard and heavy, they're going to feel that in the health department as well. So that you got to bear that in mind, guys. You know, Steve and I are older. Like, I'm going to be 40 this year, fairly, you know, and you want to be taking care of your health. It's not all about just being absolutely massive at 20. So it's another nail in the coffin for just get those all out bulks when you're younger.
Yeah. So, Faz, let's transition over to the guys not eating enough or inconsistent about reaching their calorie goals.
Yeah. So this is one that I see relatively often, and it's usually combined with fairly poor training. So they don't really ever progress, and they don't have the fuel to progress. I think the biggest mistake here is not going into the gym and not having the fuel to actually progress. You get these guys who go in the gym, they may be hyped up off lots of caffeine, but there's no gas in the tank because they're just really inconsistent with their food. And you'll know this, Steve. I mean, I know when I'm going at it full bore and I'm in the middle of a training cycle and my weights are at their all-time highest, like I can literally feel when I've missed a meal. So I'll know, and I'll run out of steam, I'll run out of gas in the middle of a set, and I will know when when I'm training hard and I've missed a meal. So yeah, for those guys who just chronically aren't eating enough, they're not going to be providing their body with the fuel to really power through some really hard workouts and take it to the next level in the gym that they need to go to. And also, the recovery process will, of course, be impaired. And I think most people generally know the recovery process will be impaired, but it's that oomph in the gym. They won't really understand that how good they can feel with a good solid eating schedule behind them.
One thing I want to toss at you, Faz, is something that's recurring with guys that come to me that are on the skinnier side, guys that are 130, 140, 150. When you start to get them on a bulk, there's a fairly reasonable or a fairly noticeable percentage of them that are like, I feel full, I feel fat, my belly's sticking out, I feel bloated. Like, you know, if I eat a bigger meal, I get it. I feel bloated, but they're so used to having that small waist that when they go into a bulk, they feel like there's a watermelon in their stomach and they're hesitant to eat more because they think they're going to get fat. Any words of advice or wisdom for those guys?
You know, I see this a lot. I see this a lot. I actually have a client who has this very same issue. We've been back and forth on this so much. He's actually a footballer for soccer for you guys in the US. And he loves being lighter and leaner and more kind of like shriveled in. So he loves being on the lighter side, a little bit depleted. He likes the feeling of being depleted. He likes the look. And as soon as he has a few decent meals in him where he fills out and it's just glycogen and water and some food in his belly, he says, I feel fat. It's like,
Right.
You've not gained any fat. You're just naturally a little bit more bloated. You've got some water in you. But there's two things with that. The first one is you're providing the body the tools to grow. But secondly, you're providing the body with that protection to actually lift heavy in the gym. And for him, it's that protection of being on the field and being a little bit more robust. And in the same way, for the guys that we're talking to, it's they're going into the gym and feeling a little bit more powerful, having some more leverage behind you. So think of it as a benefit. You know, you're trying to get big and strong. That's the whole idea. So don't worry about a little extra fluffiness. It's all good.
Yeah. So, you know, to add to that, you also have the guys that are like, I'm trying to say this in a polite way, but I'm going to use a little humor. So just bear with me and don't hate me. The drama queens, they're like, I can't possibly eat that much food each day. I can't possibly. I'm not, you know, and I'm just being humorous, guys. When I say drama queens, so don't hate me. But, you know, some of it, like, I can't possibly eat that much. You have a specific goal, which is to build muscle. You have a specific calorie target, which is based on a reasonable standard or reasonable data points. So you have to eat like you lift. You can't just not eat and expect to gain muscle.
Yeah, 100%. And, you know, we all have our cross to bear in that respect. So while putting on weight is relatively easy for me, for a lot of people, it's not. We all have our cross to bear, so no one has it easier than anyone else, unless you're maybe Ronnie Coleman or Jay Cutler or whatever, right? But so whatever is your particular bugbear, so then you've got to address that and attack it, because that is what is preventing you from reaching your goals. Remember that.
Yeah, what Faz says is important. We all have challenges. There's a few people that are just naturally in the lane and make it look easy. But the rest of us, we all have challenges. Yours might be eating enough. Mine might be I don't get enough. I just can't naturally get good sleep, whatever it is. So, Faz, I want to transition over to training real quick. One thing I've said over the years is that a bulk without proper training is simply a fat gain program. And I want to repeat that. If you're bulking and your training is not nailed, it's simply a fat gain program. You want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, I think if you don't have a robust training stimulus, you can actually, I'm pretty sure you can actually lose muscle. I think I've seen a study to this effect that Menno Henselmans talked about. So it's a pretty wacky concept. But if you're on a bulk and you're training in the gym, but you're really slacking off, and let's say you've changed your routine about 4 times in the last 2 months, so you're constantly just building up to poundages, getting used to new routines, and you're really just like jacking off in the gym, then there's a potential for that to go horribly wrong. So yeah, the training side has got to be nailed down. And I'd also say, I was going to add this on to the diet section, but I would say I generally begin bulks when people are approaching new poundage territory. So I'm quite cautious with my bulks with the new guys, and I'd like to see somebody with a lead-in of about 1 or 2 weeks to get to the point where they're building up to new poundages before we say, okay, now let's drop the hammer, get some extra food in there and really push this. So the food has got to fuel the process. So yeah, we've got to be training hard. And how can we ensure we're training hard? How can we objectively know we're training hard? Well, are we in new poundage territory, or are we in sort of locally high territory for poundage?
Yeah. So the whole concept about work hard is something I've talked about forever, and it's like people trying to catch a cloud. They don't always understand it until they actually train with somebody working hard. But I'd love to do a video with you on that, just to talk about, add some depth to the whole topic. I mentioned yesterday that, for those watching, they're saying, well, what is training hard? I feel like I'm training hard. Everybody feels like they're training hard. But some people are working out. They're training for exertion or calorie burn, or they go into the gym without a plan and they lift up to 15 pounds and do front lateral raises. No plan. Training has a specific plan and a specific roadmap, and every set or every exercise on every day has a specific goal. And you have to attack that goal regardless if you feel like it or not. If the goal is to, say, go into the gym and you have 3 sets of bench press and you have 8, and then the last set is max reps, you don't get to choose when you do when you decide to progress, and you don't get to randomly backtrack, deload, reload, unload because your big toe hurts that day. You got to go in and stay on the tracks reasonably. And that's hard work. Isn't just doing the work on the days you feel good. It's sticking to the plan on the days you feel bad.
The analogy would be turning up to school and just sitting down at the back of the classroom and just doing the bare minimum. You're there, you've turned up, you've signed the register, you've hit the attendance, but odds are you're probably not going to pass the exam. You've got to actually get involved. You got to learn. You've got to be there, present. So it's the same with the gym. I mean, I was working in with a couple of guys a few years back, and I was teaching them how to work hard on bicep curls. Each one of them stopped when they considered it to be failure. And just by me talking to them and being in their face, I got them to do 7 more reps. So they were working 7 reps away from failure. Just by me standing in their face going, hey, go, go, go again, go again. They eked out 7 more. So those are guys young guys, in their 20s, early 20s, who go to the gym, shout and scream, make a big show of things. Everyone thinks they're working hard, but the reality is they're not. I would say the bottom line is, are you progressing? Are you in new poundage territory? And that's really the key. So that's ultimately, if you are in all-time new poundage territory, let's say you're a young guy, and this is why I do my whole markers of progression thing. If you're in new poundage territory for your big lifts, then odds are you're working hard enough because you are at that all-time high level. Sorry, kind of bounced around there a little bit.
That's okay. You know, it's we talked about not to stretch this video out into an endless ramble, but we talked about before we came on how strength training has kind of corrupted bodybuilding training, and you know, I've always controlled the weight, controlled the eccentric, not slowed it, but controlled it. And I always see clients, you know, new clients. So like I had a gentleman this morning doing a bench press, and it was like super rapid fire, no tightness, no control. And yes, progression is in the mix for strength training and for muscle building, but muscle building is a little bit more nuanced and you know, a little bit more focused. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, totally. I mean, coming from the UK, we still have the legacy of HIT, Dorian Yates style of training. And while Dorian himself was very controlled with his lifting, it seems to have left a legacy of bodybuilders who are confusing strength training with bodybuilding. And we see that now with a lot of the trained by JP crowd. JP is great. Jordan Peters, fantastic guy, great training philosophy. But it's almost as if people misinterpret what he's saying and they go for poundage over absolutely everything. So the problem that we have, that I see a lot in the UK, is guys will go for progression and they will cheat out rep after rep by squirming, doing partial reps, trying to get the best leverage to lift the most amount of weight. Like, for example, they'll do the partial shoulder press kind of thing, partial delt press. They'll do rows in the machine and stand away from the machine to get the fulcrum so they can lift more weight. Every possible variation of every exercise with reverse bands and all that kind of stuff to lift as much weight as possible just so they can get this extra 5, 10 or so pounds on the bar and have as much weight on the bar as possible. The thing is, if you're artificially increasing the weight on the bar by all these tips and tricks, it's not bodybuilding anymore. We're taking the stress off the muscle. And sure, you might be hack squatting 5 plates aside, but if it's with a reverse band and you're not going all the way down and you're wrapping your knees, then it's not really bodybuilding anymore. So yeah, I see that a lot, particularly in the UK. It's not working the muscle. It's just changing poundage for poundage sake. And that there's a hard stop. At a certain point, you can only wrap your knees so much. You can only go partial squat so much. You can only get so much help from spotters where it just becomes impossible to increase any further. And I see a lot of guys who are stuck at this wall who don't have the level of muscle mass which is associated with how strong they appear to be in the gym. And that's the problem.
Yeah, and you know, over the years, I've taken a beating. I felt like a seal being clubbed for trying to get guys away from strong lifts and starting strength in the more, because those are fine strength programs, and I invariably get people say those are great strength programs. I'm not talking about strength. The average Joe is using them for bodybuilding, and they're not the best bodybuilding programs. I'm going to make a couple quick points, Faz, and then we'll hop off and get your last thoughts. But what you said about working with folks and those guys squeezing out 7 more reps, it's absolutely true. Like when I get somebody that comes to work out with me, I know their capabilities because I've been in this game a long time. Like I had 2 years ago, I had a gentleman come to me and he was doing, after 10 years of training, he was frustrated that he was not building the muscle he wanted. And he was doing dumbbell benches with 45s. My wife at the time was doing 40s for 10 sets of 10. And I'm like, I said to the gentleman, I said, I want you to pick up the 80s and knock out as many reps as you can. He hit 12. And I said, now you need to go home and do that. Because he's using 45s, and I knew he could do 80s just by the way he looked, right?
Yeah.
So that's part of it. And, you know, to talk about real quick, the difference between pure strength training and muscle building. When I got into powerlifting, Faz, there's a video on this channel of me doing a 500-pound. I had chains and a slingshot on, but it was a 500-pound bench rep, and the eccentric literally takes like 7 seconds.
Yeah,
that's the world I'm used to. And the power lifters would make fun of me because, like, my eccentric, they could smoke a cigarette waiting for the press, right? So that's kind of the world I built my strength in, was really controlled, focused concentrics. So before we hop off, Faz, any final thoughts for those looking to maximize their bulk?
Yeah, I think just stay honest with yourself in terms of your lifts. Use my markers of progression idea, this idea of just having 3 lifts, which you're going to focus on for the next 6 months. Everything else in a program can change, but you're going to move heaven and earth to get those 3 lifts up and make those 3 lifts suited to your body type. So it could be like a dip, chin, and squat, let's say. It doesn't have to be a squat, bench, and deadlift, but everything that within your power to get those 3 lifts for a set of 10 up by an extra, I don't know, 50 pounds in the next 6 months. That'll be clean, honest gains. Don't switch exercises around. Don't underwork yourself. Don't skimp progression. Don't backtrack. Just go for all out. And if you're doing that and gaining a sensible amount of body weight, as Steve and I have discussed, then no doubt you're going to gain some muscle.
So before we hop off, if anybody's interested in one-on-ones, Faz does coaching, and I do coaching as well. You can hit me up on my website, superlivingtoday.com, which I don't have up on this video, but where are we? Right there. Or you can go, Faz, where can they find you?
So my website is fazlifts.co.uk, or just go ahead and contact me, DM me via Instagram. Also on YouTube, where you'll probably see this on my channel, I have a form which you can click on just to go ahead and fill out some details to get in touch with me. So yeah, I'd love to hear from you.
All right, Faz, I appreciate you being on. Have a great weekend. If you guys have any topics or you'd like to see Faz on more often, just drop a comment down below. Thanks again, Faz. Talk to you later.
Take care.